Well, it's nice to see that so many people are interested in football as much as quantum mechanics. And hopefully we can promise you a less intellectual but equally stimulating discussion here. I'm going to go straight into it, talking about the football revolution in China. Over the recent transfer window, Chinese football clubs spent more on foreign players than any other league in the world. We've also seen Chinese companies buying up European clubs, sponsorships, and even sports rights companies. So I'll start with you, Patrick. What's driving this football revolution in China?
Well, I think it's really two things. One relates to interest and direction from the government, and the second one relates to interest and direction from the private sector. I don't think they're unconnected from each other in some ways. With respect to the government, the first thing they did was they issued a directive called Guideline 46, I think it's called. And basically what it was all about was trying to make sure that the sports becomes an interesting part of the industry, growing sports from around 0.63% of GDP at the moment up to 3%, I think their target is in the next 15 years. So basically what they've said is that sports is a really important industry, and they're putting it front and center. Okay. The second thing that they did was more to do with the Chinese Football Association, which previously had been a very political organization, and they've made changes there to really make it more like a private sector organization. And I think it's pretty well known that the government are really looking to try and attract the World Cup to be staged in China at some stage in the future, potentially even win the World Cup at some point in the future. So these are the things that are happening at a government level. In terms of the private sector, there's been a huge amount of energy coming from companies like Wanda. Basically, there's been investments made in football clubs. The first major one, I think, was the Wanda investment in Atletico. Then after that, CITIC and China Media Capital made a very big investment in Manchester City, a City Football Group. And there's been other smaller investments in other clubs as well. So that's one big thing. The other big thing then, of course, is there's been a huge investment in players. I think Jamie will talk more about the effect on that on the player transfer market. There's also been a huge investment in the sports marketing agencies, basically my business. There was an acquisition done or announced just last week, where Beijing Baofeng and Everbright have spent, I think, 1.2 billion investing in a company called MP Silva, as a football rights trading business. So basically, there's been a whole bunch of stuff, but it's really come from government directives combined with, the private sector.
So for a big European club like Manchester United, does this represent a threat or an opportunity, Jamie?
Yeah, just one other point. I think Patrick talks about the government and the private sector. There is a consumer pull, and there's a media factor at play here. Football has always been popular in China. It's our #1 market in terms of fan base, and I think the fragmentation of media has meant that folks have access to the content in a more simple way through their mobile devices and whatnot. So I think beyond the government direction, there's no doubt that's significant, you've got a consumer demand pull, which is really important. In terms of the impact on Premier League clubs, on European clubs, look, I mean, there's no doubt that there is a large labor pool of footballers around the world who are very talented, but at the end of the day, it's a finite resource in terms of the top quality guys. Why do players want to play football, and why do they choose certain clubs? Predominantly because of the brand, if you will, or the history and heritage of the club, right? A lot of players really want to play for Real Madrid or Manchester United. The location and the weather and the culture are important, right? We see it more challenging to pull in players vis-a-vis Barcelona and Real Madrid because, with due respect to Manchester, those are nicer places to live. And then, of course, there's money. Right, and money plays a significant factor, and the absolute sums are somewhat eye-watering, even relative to 5 years ago. So that has an effect. We still think we compete really well on the heritage and the desire to play for a big club in the top competitions. But as you said, in this transfer window, there was a lot of money flowing in, and a lot of European players went over there. We'll see whether those are the players at their peak or whether they're the players at the end. I think ultimately, if China wants to build a sustainable football industry and a sustainable talent pool locally, which is what drives the desire for the World Cup, they have to strike a balance between foreign players and domestic players, right? So all this isn't just about buying trophy assets from abroad, it's about developing football. Yes, having a top quality European or South American in training, yes, he will help elevate the talent, but you can't have 11 players on the pitch being foreign. I think the fans will lose interest, and that'll ultimately be self-defeating in terms of what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that in China, there's a ban on foreign goalkeepers, for example, in the domestic league, because I think they're worried if they allowed foreign goalkeepers in, they wouldn't be able to develop anyone who could play between the posts for their national teams. So
Exactly.
I think they've already acknowledged it as a bit of a challenge. In terms of the amount of money being spent, I mean, we've seen Chinese companies in every sector go out into the rest of the world, buying up talent, brands, companies. In the case of football, Patrick, do you think this sort of investment, this sort of record-breaking, unprecedented investment, is sustainable? Or is there a risk that this becomes a bit of a flash in the pan and these Chinese tycoons sort of lose interest?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly in our industry, we've seen some of this before. The last major wave of acquisitions in sports marketing was a French company called Lagardère, which was predominantly an arms manufacturing company who invested in sports marketing. And I think they're probably, it's fair to say, there's some question marks over the return they're getting on that investment. So yes, I think you can look at some of these investments that are being made now and wonder whether they're going to be profitable. But I think you also need to look at really the rationale for the investments. As I said at the top of the discussion, I think that there's almost been a sort of directive given out that an industry is to be built, that major international events are to be staged in the country, like the World Cup. And it may well be that some of these companies are looking at that and saying this is something that we're doing not just to make money or to make return, but also in the interest of China, also in the interest of building China. It's something that the government wants. So maybe how you judge the return on investment in China might be a little bit different.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know, obviously, for Manchester United, it's always been about business in Asia rather than politics. I know you're one of the first European clubs to have a real focus on the commercial side in Asia. I mean, what do you see, Jamie, as being the real business opportunity for Manchester United in Asia?
Yeah, I mean, everything we do, although we don't shy away from the fact that we take a very commercial approach to the sport, everything we do is designed to improve the quality of the product, if you will. So we take the funds that we generate on the commercial side and we reinvest those, whether that's in the training facilities or the player wages or the coach's wages. So it's not purely commercial, it has a sporting intent. In terms of the opportunities in Asia, look, there's 3 or 4 pillars. There's the media opportunity, and I think we're seeing significant pull through in markets like China with the digital folks, whether that's Tencent or Sina buying up rights, or our ability to connect with consumers in a more meaningful way. I think if you think about a Man United fan in Indonesia 5 years ago, the game's played on a Sunday, he might not know the score for at least 24 hours unless he happened to have a television in his house, and not that many of them did. Today, there's a mobile device, he's getting live scores immediately. So that fundamentally changes the relationship with the consumer. Why is that interesting then? That becomes interesting for us as a club, as a brand, because we can sell things to them, whether that's through e-commerce. It's also interesting to brands, to what we call sponsors, to marketing entities that want to connect with those consumers. Our ability to tell a brand like a Unilever or a Pepsi that we can actually reach these consumers is fundamentally better today than it was even 3 or 4 years ago. And then there's things like the events and the tours where we play games around the region, and those have a commercial return in their own right, but also they're an opportunity for us to build a more meaningful relationship with the supporters.
And in terms of the brands, is it just about international brands that want to use Manchester United to sort of raise their profile in Asia? Is it also about companies in Asia wanting to raise their profile too?
Yeah, that's why we opened the office here. So, although we are blessed with having many fans from around the world, we're this unusual company that had 135 years of history with never having an office outside of our domestic market. So we opened an office in Hong Kong in 2012 with a view to tapping into that opportunity. We'd had historical success convincing Western brands that we were a good vehicle to back, so to speak, in terms of awareness and reach in Asia. The 2 trends we're seeing more of now is what I would call sort of local for local. So an Indonesian company or a Thai company that's focused on their domestic market where Man United cuts through for them. And I think you'll see more, particularly I think with with China and Indonesia, what you've seen with Japan and Korea over the last 20 years, where domestic brands get very strong in their local market and then look to go abroad. abroad, they don't have the brand trust, they don't have the recognition, they don't have the visibility. In that regard, sponsorship makes a lot of sense.
And then, Patrick, I know quite a few other clubs at the top level in Europe have Asian offices now, but I mean, how deep can this kind of engagement go? How many clubs can really have a decent presence in Asia and actually make money off the back of that?
Well, that's a big question. I mean, I think fundamentally what all the clubs are doing, and Manchester United obviously is in a kind of leadership position here, is really building as many relationships with as many fans as they can in the marketplace. And off the back of those relationships, whether they're through digital media or through TV, they're trying to obviously generate as much commercial return, short, medium term, long term as they can. What's interesting that you've seen in the last 18, 24 months is that clubs are also coming here looking for investments. I mean, it's kind of an open secret at the moment that, for example, AC Milan is close to, apparently close to doing a deal with a group of Chinese investors to buy a controlling stake or a large stake in the club. We've seen Man City. I know that there are a lot of other clubs also working in the China market at the moment, looking to raise money again. So it's kind of gone from beyond just trying to develop their consumer relationships into also trying to develop, investments.
Yeah. And presumably every club owner who wants to sell, every player's agent who wants to get higher salary, they'll all be looking to China now as a potential market.
Yeah, and I mean, look, the reality is I don't think it is possible for every club to make lots of money in China, whether it's through investment or through, I don't believe that that's possible. And I think that there are an awful lot of clubs on the ground. I think that it'd be interesting to hear what Jamie has to say about this, but I'd say there is quite a lot of price competition in the marketplace for sponsorship packages. So yeah, that competition is definitely making, driving certain prices down for certain types of packages, yeah.
Are you feeling that competitive pressure, Jamie, as other clubs have followed your lead and tried to do more in Asia?
Yeah, no doubt about it. There's a number of reasons a brand might partner with a Manchester United or another club. Price is also a factor. We try to be very disciplined about that, so we walk away from a lot of business. 4 years ago when we opened the office, I don't want to say we were pushing an open door by any stretch, right? These are hard deals to get done. We're a premium price point product, so they were always difficult. But today, yes, we're faced with the challenge of a number of the other clubs coming in and offering to do what amounts to a similar package for cents on the dollar. Now, of course, we sell our virtues and our benefits. If the deal doesn't make sense for us, then we walk away. So you'll see us, I think, doing fewer press releases, meaning fewer announcements of deals, but focusing on more, not so much profitable business, but also business where it works for both sides.
Yeah, I think also there's an important point here, and that is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but the amount of money generated from sponsorship in, say, the Asian market is relatively small in compared to the kind of television money that's earned by, say, the Premier League in Asia. So the Premier League in Asia is making roughly $550 million a year, okay? And that money is divided quite equally amongst the clubs, which is controversial in itself. But if you obviously divide that by 20 clubs, that's quite a lot of money, right? So basically, the TV money is still the thing that really drives all the money flowing into football, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
right?
and I think
by a large extent.
I think that's right. That 1/20th that we get pays for one player, to give you a sense. Yeah, I think the reason we're out here is what people believe over time is that the TV rights are a leading indicator of marketing spend and consumer interest. And as you have consumers having more disposable income, brands are willing to put more marketing dollars behind that and would be well positioned. But it's fair to say that our sponsorship business, if you look at our major partners, Chevrolet, Aeon, Adidas, they're Western businesses in terms of the contribution of the P&L. So Asia is very much still emerging in that regard.
Yeah, but just to put some of those TV things in perspective in comparison to sponsorship, up until last year, the China television market, where people like me would go in and sell TV rights, was actually a very poorly performing market, and it was really because there was CCTV effectively had a stranglehold on the market, and I won't go into all the details, but it's very difficult to make money in China. All of that completely changed last year. And I would say going forward in the next 2, 3, 4 years, the next cycle of rights, you're probably going to have 150, 300, probably about half a billion, I would say, in 2 or 3 years' time, worth of money coming into the top European leagues. And that will have gone from maybe 40 or 50, say, last year, right? So it's going to go up about tenfold. So if you're talking about the actual opportunities, net opportunities back to Manchester United, a lot of it, I think, will actually come from those TV deals, right?
Yeah, the Premier League signed a 6-year deal before the government announced their interest in football, which was an unfortunate mistake.
Yeah, that's true.
And you were saying earlier, Jamie, that everything you do on the business side is about improving the performance on the pitch. But how much does the performance on the pitch affect your ability to maximize the value of the brand in Asia, particularly given that, obviously, of late, United haven't been doing as well as they would have liked, it's fair to say.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's no denying that we've been disappointed that we haven't met our targets in the last couple seasons. Look, there's 2 ways we make money outside of our domestic market. There's television and sponsorship. The television contracts tend to be long-term, and so we're reasonably comfortable in that regard. The sponsorship contracts are also multi-year deals. So what we're seeing is more the issue around price from competition. What I would say is our partners, our commercial partners, buy into a few things. They buy into the reach that we deliver, both the stated number of fans, but also the digital media and the TV reach. That hasn't changed. They buy into the brand attributes, so the qualities of Man United. And then, of course, there's the success factor you can't deny. But it hasn't had a material impact as yet. The beauty of our business is it has a 12-month cycle, and we're in the renewal cycle, so to speak, in terms of investing in the team this summer, and we have a new manager, which is very well documented. So the beauty is we start again with renewed hope and optimism, and that's something we trade in. Our clients obviously feel the success or lack thereof in the moment, but then they also experience the hope and the anticipation, which is something that is quite a powerful human emotion they buy into.
We're lucky enough to be promoting Manchester United in China this year in the International Champions Cup, and we certainly haven't seen any drop in level of interest in the club or in buying tickets. So I think it's not something that changes overnight, right? Yeah, and I think the other thing that's important to note is if you look at markets like India, Indonesia, emerging markets where folks have a certain level of disposable income, our product is ultimately a television and a media product, right? I mean, yes, we're playing soccer and there's 11 guys trying to put the ball in the net, but we're a media product. And so our market is, by its very nature, expanding. So as more Indians have televisions and mobile phones, they get exposed to football, they get exposed to the club. We're gaining fans as we go along, and that's frankly why we're really excited to be selling Man United.
Yeah. And just before we wrap up, I want to ask quickly about the way people consume football. Are you seeing a shift in Asia now towards mobile as opposed to traditional television? How's that going to pan out in the next few years? Yeah, I mean, no question. That's happening everywhere in the world, and the fact that mobile is obviously growing even faster in Asia. There's no question about that. I would say that people are also enjoying the live product a lot more. I mean, basically, as I say, we're promoting the European clubs playing in China, and we're seeing a huge response to that. So people are also, very much consuming it digitally, but I think they're also enjoying the live spectacle. Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, there's no doubt that having immediate access to our games on your mobile device is something that's appealing to us. But actually, over the last 12 months, we've started these events. We call them I Love United, but it's basically a fan viewing activity. So we went to 6 cities. We went to Brazil. We went to India, Vietnam this year, where we hosted basically in a room maybe 3 times the size of this, 3,000 to 4,000 fans with a big screen. We brought our former players over so that they can have that shared experience that sport is all about. So not that many of our 600 million followers can go to Old Trafford. We try to bring that collective experience, and we've seen increasing demand for that. So although, yes, there's a potential to sit on your mobile device and watch if that's convenient for you, I think generally speaking, if people have the means and the capability, they want to watch on a big screen, with their friends and experience it socially. Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for your time, gents. It's been really interesting.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Cheers.
Cheers.